So this video truly is going to be unlike any video that I've ever made. Please be advised that this video is going to contain content pertaining to sexual assault, neglect, and turning a blind eye, all of which happen particularly in the film industry, surprising, and specifically to children. Children who I'm sure many of you will recognize, especially if you grew up in the 90s or early 2000s like I did. So I'm sure by now you guys have heard of this documentary going around called Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. It's a documentary that has completely taken over social media as well as a bunch of major news outlets. Really, it's getting the attention that I think it absolutely needs. Now, before I go any further, I just want to encourage all of you to actually stop this video and go and see Quiet on Set for yourselves if you haven't already. It's very well put together, it's compelling, it is heartbreaking. I actually found myself tearing up at a few parts. And I also would like to give credit to the show's creators for bringing us something that is as informative and as important as this documentary is. So, Kate Taylor and Emma Schwartz, you guys did a great job, and thank you for creating this amazing docuseries. And thank you as well to all the journalists and victims who stepped forward and brought these issues to light in the first place. Your bravery is going to inspire real change and hopefully make the world of child acting a better place. So, once again, please do yourself a favor and go and watch Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV right now if you haven't already. It's available on a bunch of streaming platforms like Max, Discovery Plus, Amazon Prime, Hulu, and a bunch more streaming platforms. But if you've already seen the docuseries, then let's get started. Quiet on Set is a documentary that discusses many notable things that occurred over at Nickelodeon during its rise to the mainstream. One of the most notable aspects being Dan Schneider's career and rise to power. Now, you may not know Dan Schneider by name, but you definitely know his work. Hypothetically speaking, if you were to name your top 10 favorite Nickelodeon shows of all time, odds are at least half of them are probably going to be something that Dan Schneider either created or produced. Shows like All That, Drake and Josh, Victorious, Zoe 101, The Amanda Show, iCarly, Kenan and Kel, and the list just goes on and on and on. But what makes Dan Schneider so relevant to this story is the fact that he is the perpetrator of countless instances of, I would say inappropriate workplace behavior, but that would be the understatement of the millennia. You name any kind of weird and inappropriate behavior that can occur in the workplace, and Dan Schneider did exactly that. At least 1,000 times. Everything from berating cast and crew, malicious insults, threatening people's careers, constant reminders of the power he has over them, and even neck massages done by people of various ages. But what is probably the most damning thing about Dan Schneider's time at Nickelodeon is just how often he got away with adult jokes inserted into his shows. Granted, adult jokes in media can be funny and done in good taste. It's not impossible. But what separates Dan Schneider from that is the constant theme of adult jokes of a specifically sexual nature. I can't go into too much detail because YouTube will hate me if I do, but one thing I will say is that the most common joke in Dan Schneider's shows are related to feet, and more often than not, it is done with a minor or minors taking center stage. Now, one thing I need you guys to understand is that everything I've just said, these are not isolated incidents. These are things that occurred for basically his entire time at Nickelodeon, which was from 1994 to 2019, so 25 years. For 25 years, Dan Schneider was the creepiest fucking ogre of a human being that any kid could have possibly had the displeasure of working for. He is, by all accounts, the Harvey Weinstein of kids' TV. What makes all this even worse is that he wasn't even the only sorry excuse for a human being roaming the halls of Nickelodeon, as a man named Brian Peck was also there. Brian Peck was a dialogue coach for Nickelodeon and is the abuser of none other than Drake Bell, who was 15 years old at the time. Brian Peck sexually abused Drake Bell in ways so disturbing that not only can I not mention them here, but not even Drake could bring himself to give a lot of details of what happened. What makes this so much worse is the fact that Drake was religiously targeted by Brian on a constant basis. Everything from being touchy in front of other people, manipulating Drake into straining his relationship with his own father, and spam calling Drake to hang out with him. Thankfully, Brian Peck's obsession with Drake Bell is ultimately what led to him being caught. This is because Drake just snapped one day and told his mom about everything that Brian had done to him. And because Brian had so much love for Drake, he confessed why he did what he did, not knowing that the police were listening to that very same phone call. What happened next is one of the many things that made my blood absolutely boil as I watched the documentary. The judge that oversaw Drake's case against Brian received over 41 character letters, many of which asked for leniency towards Brian, and some even asked for no punishment for Brian. Mind you, all these letters weren't done by just personal friends and family of Brian, but by people within the industry itself. And believe me, it's people that you'll recognize regardless of what generation you grew up in. Now, to be fair, many of these people have come out and said that they had no idea what was really going on, that they didn't have the full story, or that they were given either incomplete or just flat out incorrect information. And I totally get that. It's not your fault if someone gives you the wrong story. I get that people make mistakes, but this is a pretty big mistake to make. Looking from their perspective, I totally understand wanting to believe that your friend is innocent. But at the same time, you don't always know what's going on behind closed doors. And due to that fact, it probably would have just been best to, just not write a letter. Yes, I know that that's really easy for me to say because I've never been in that kind of situation before, but that doesn't change the facts. And the facts are, whether you knew it or not, you guys supported someone who was so obviously guilty of one of the worst crimes imaginable. Some people even say that Brian was tempted to touch Drake by outside forces beyond his control. Tempted. He was tempted to touch a minor. I'm sorry, but me personally, I know that there is not a single thing on planet Earth that you could do to me that could tempt me to do what Brian Peck did to Drake Bell. But you know why? You know why that is? It's because only a sick and deranged monster could do what Brian Peck did. Only the lowest form of life is capable of something so nauseating and unspeakably vile, and it sickens me to my stomach that the same people who claimed that he was tempted, we're still calling it tempted, are the same people that preach his innocence. You're basically saying, well, Your Honor, I mean, okay, maybe he did do it, Your Honor, but you have to consider all the facts here. What was Drake Bell wearing at the time? Obviously he acted like he wanted it. The signs must have just been there. No! Just no! But you want to know something? That didn't stop Brian Peck from actually finding work in the industry, because even after being convicted of his crimes, he still got to work at Disney Channel on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Just hopping from one company of potential victims to another, I guess, and no one batted an eye. I guess the people who run the background check department at Disney all took the day off when Brian came in. The sheer lack of awareness that was going on during this time is absolutely staggering. And as it turns out, Brian wasn't even the only pedophile working at Nickelodeon. The documentary makes it perfectly clear that Nickelodeon was basically a revolving door of pedophile employees and associates, most of which occurred under Dan Schneider's watch. There's even been reports that allegedly, at the age of 13, Amanda Bynes was impregnated by Schneider and had a secret abortion. And when she tried to speak up about it, people called her crazy, and she was placed in psychiatric care. Now, this story hasn't been officially confirmed as true or not at the time this video is recording, but even if it's not true, at the end of the day, this poor girl said that she was the victim of a horrible crime committed by her own boss, someone that she trusted. And in response, the people closest to her locked her away like she was an animal. But in spite of these allegations, Dan Schneider actually spoke up in an interview with iCarly actor Boogie and told his side of the story. Dan said that some of the stuff in the documentary was either exaggerated or didn't happen at all because, of course he did. He even doubled down on his relationship with Amanda Bynes and said that it was totally innocent. Sure. But even the things he did confess to, it seems like it's only to convince people that he's sorry for what he did, when in reality, he's only sorry that he got caught. But even if he is sorry, let's just give Dan Schneider the benefit of the doubt and say that he is sorry. It doesn't fucking matter. His apology means absolutely nothing. The shit that he did is, by all accounts, unforgivable. There is no coming back from any of that. The only thing that could even maybe kind of start to make it somewhat okay is if he spends the rest of his life underneath whatever fucking prison he gets sent off to. And for those of you who want to see the full interview, I'm not sorry to say, but I am not going to leave a link to the actual video in the description below. I don't want to give it any more attention than I'm already giving it. If you really want to find it, then you'll find it. But one of the many things that comes to mind when discussing this documentary is how has Nickelodeon responded to it? After all, it does make them look pretty bad. Fortunately, we do have an answer in the form of a quote that they released. Unfortunately, it sounds exactly like how you think it would. The quote goes like this: "Now that Drake Bell has disclosed his identity as the plaintiff in the 2004 case, we are dismayed and saddened to learn of the trauma that he has endured, and we commend and support the strength required to come forward. Though we cannot corroborate or negate allegations of behaviors from productions decades ago, Nickelodeon, as a matter of policy, investigates all formal complaints as a part of our commitment to fostering a safe and professional workplace environment free of harassment or other kinds of inappropriate conduct. Our highest priorities are the well-being and best interests, not just of our employees, cast and crew, but of all children. And we have adopted numerous safeguards over the years to help ensure we are living up to our own high standards and the expectations of our audience." What a load of shit. This is the most PR-friendly, lawyer-written response I have ever heard. There is not an ounce, not an inkling of authenticity to this message. You say that you've adopted safeguards over the years to ensure safety? When? What, 5 years ago? 2 years ago? Today? After some of your biggest child stars were manipulated, assaulted, and experienced trauma that they're still working through? Look, Nickelodeon is a huge part of my childhood, as I'm sure that it was a huge part of yours. But they need to do so much better than this. All studios need to do so much better than this. Anyone who knows me knows that I have never liked child acting. I have despised it from day one. Kids should not have to worry about memorizing dozens of pages of dialogue or catering to the needs of producers or being the sole contributor to their family's income. Kids should be worried about how they're going to pass their next vocabulary test or what cartoons they're going to watch this weekend. Now, granted, a lot of today's successful and even well-managed actors started their careers at a young age, but that is clearly not always the case. Miley Cyrus did more drugs during her time with Disney Channel than she did at any other point in her career. Jake Lloyd was viciously bullied because of his performance in Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. Macaulay Culkin had to sever ties with his father because of how he handled the money he made from the movies he starred in. Jeanette McCurdy wrote one of my favorite books of all time, detailing her experiences as a child actor, who also coincidentally worked for Dan Schneider, and how it not only destroyed her self-esteem, but it also destroyed the relationship she had with her own mother. Hence the title of the book, I'm Glad My Mom Died. I could go on and on about why child acting sucks, but my point in all of this is that it's bad enough that at such a young age, these kids' lives are basically decided for them. And what makes it worse is that they are working for a company where the policies in place that are supposed to protect them only exist theoretically. We need stricter laws on child acting. Having a parent on set is not enough anymore. None of these policies are enough anymore. It is time for some real change. Nickelodeon, get to work and make that change happen. But anyways, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so that you're notified every time I upload a new video. If you like this video, then be sure to give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment letting me know what you want to see next. But other than that, you guys, thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.